Thank you. It's just a couple of minutes past 9 o'clock. I'd like to start these meetings on time. Joe, Joe Horn, would you move to the back and bring forth the public sign-up sheet? So I'm Rogers Anderson, the Williamson County Mayor. We welcome everyone here today. This is the Williamson County Growth Plan Update Coordinating Committee. Our agenda, before we get into the agenda, if you have a cell phone on you, would you please silence it so that we're not interrupted? As we have done in the past, the first item on the agenda will be the public comments. We have 20 folks that have requested to speak. We have 30 minutes in which to do the public segment, so you get about, we got 20, so a minute and a half per person. Is that about right? And so we're going to be a little tight on that schedule, but those that can pair up with other individuals, that would allow you a little bit more time. So with that being said, I will call the first individual up. If you will, make your way through here or here, come up to the microphone, and first person is Justin Lanning. Mr. Lanning, when he started, in line after him will be Henry Huffner, Fuffner, and following him will be Jacob Garcia. Mr. Lanning, the time is yours.
All right, Justin Lanning, 1725 Barker Road, Thompson Station. Just want to thank the Planning Committee and kind of put a bow on some things on this Northwest Spring Hill proposed UGB. I want to thank the committee for really making sure that there was lively conversations and thank the Spring Hill BOMA that the lively conversations really got aligned with the state intent of expanding or adjusting UGBs, which is to really make sure that there's plans and there's necessity. And in that Northwest region where there weren't really plans, we had fruitful conversations with the BOMA, Spring Hill BOMA, and what you have in front of you and what you'll hear from them today is they voted on option D, which removes 91% of that Northwest UGB. The ones that are in are either folks that were indifferent, folks that wanted to be in, or some folks that we couldn't get communication on. So that's kind of the landing spot on there. I think from a water standpoint, with the Duck River, I think everyone should feel encouraged and safe that the Williamson County Planning Group 2 will keep those waters safe and not allow anything. So I'd say not disturbing that area is good to go, and I think the option that you'll be presented is supported by the community. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Huffner.
Good morning. My name is Henry Hafner, and I own the farm at 2795 Owl Hollow Road. So a lot of y'all should know me by now. I've spoken at the last two meetings as well as several of the Spring Hill BOMA meetings. And you know our concerns. Me and my neighbors in the Owl Hollow and Duplex neighborhood do not want to be included in the expansion of Spring Hill's UGB on the east side of I-65. Now we understand the UGB is not the same as annexation, but we do see this as a way that will encourage development that's detrimental to our way of life. I'll just put it in a simple way. I have a little 2-year-old son, and I want him to learn how to hunt and fish on his family's farm just like I did and just like my father did before me. We've been there for 70 years. And if you put an industrial park right behind our property, that's going to make that virtually impossible. I will remind the commission that the Spring Hill official, Ms. Pam over here, at the last meeting did indicate explicitly that our side of I-65 was desired for industrial development. We have presented our concerns at Spring Hill. My neighbors and my family, on our own time and using our own resources, contacted nearly all of the residents in the eastern section of the UGB on I-65. 94% opposed. And we ask you, as commissioners, we're like the persistent widow in Luke 18. Please vote. We're doing the best we can, so please vote against the expansion of the Spring Hill UGB. Thank you for your time. Sorry if I went over.
Next is Jacob Garcia. After that is Virginia Evans, and following Miss Evans will be Kathy Marlin.
I am Jacob Garcia, and I live at 4103 Jensen Lane, and I am an 8th grader at TSMS. What will happen when too many families move into Williamson County, where their kids must go to our schools, which are already overcrowded? Some students don't even have lockers, and middle school students have study hall in the elementary cafeteria and sometimes in the gym. We don't have enough bus drivers, so middle school students have to ride with the high school students. Many middle school students learn some very bad and inappropriate things from the high schools, while the bus drivers sometimes don't even care and just driving the bus. With this reckless expansion means more kids will come, which means we need more teachers. With homes being more expensive the days go on and teachers low pay, it will be hard for our teachers to afford to live close to TSMS. My parents have taught me the golden rule, which is to treat others the way you want to be treated. We are asking you to be good neighbors and to create a better community for our future.
Next is Virginia Evans, then Kathy Marlin, and then Don Garcia. Miss Evans?
Let me introduce myself. I am Rosie Virginia Evans, nicknamed Jenny. I have been a lifelong resident of the greatest state in the USA, the volunteer state of Tennessee. Also, the greatest county in the state is Williamson. Last but not least, the community I grew up in, a rural community east of Lewisburg Pike, Harpeth. I am 92 years young, going on 100. I have been alive longer than most anyone else in this room. I have experienced all of the changes to our county and been through all of them. My brother, Jack Petit, was in the Korean War. He came home and got called back for 2 more years. He served his state and county with dignity and honor. My sister, Lily Buford, was the first female to ever be elected to an office in Williamson County. She was Williamson County trustee in the 70s, and she retired in the 90s. I worked with her from the 80s and 90s till she retired. Then I retired in 2000. Thompson Station has not been a good neighbor to us. They have never set foot on our land or lived on it or invited or notified us of any intention to ever do so. They don't deserve to benefit from our land. We have been happy residents for hundreds of years. We do not want to see the land rezoned. What does a successful path forward look like? a successful path forward is when the committee can vote yes on the proposed urban growth boundaries, knowing that it has been approved with input from the very residents it affects, rather than at their expense. Please vote no in order to allow Spring Hill and Thompson Station more time to sit down with their affected neighbors and come to a mutual agreement so that when the time comes to vote yes, we can all sleep better at night.
Thank you, Ms. Evans.
Thank you.
Ms. Evans, you get a pass. I figure at 92 years old, there's probably a lot of us in this room are just thankful that you're able to get up here, and we'd like to be able to do that too. But unfortunately, the other 16 people, I'm going to take it away from you. Ms. Evans took your time. Kathy Marlin.
Before you start timing me, that lady is my hero and a tough act to follow. I've known her for 32 years. My name is Kathy Marlin. I live on Harpeth Paintonsville Road in rural Williamson County. Our family has lived here for over 100 years. We are just one of the many families that have been here for generations in Williamson County, including Harpeth School Road, Bethesda Road, and surrounding areas. Our ancestors literally built this community. They cleared the land and built the first roads. These many families became a close community that had each other's back. All of this community still have each other's backs today. We have a bond that cannot be broken. This is who we are. This community did not just pitch a tent here last night. We are not the landowners of the day. Our ancestors' blood, sweat, and tears were shed for this land. With the already approved housing development, we feel more expansion will diminish the quality of our rural way of life. This is a plea. Please don't change our rural way of life. It is all we have ever known. Please help us by voting no to the current UGB. Let's sit down together and work this out like good neighbors should. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marlin. Next is Don Garcia. Next, Mr. Ken Davis, and following him will be Thomas Stevenson.
My name is Dawn Garcia. I live at 4103 Jensen Lane in Harpeth Woods. I would like to thank the members of the committee for the opportunity to be heard today. I would like to take some time to go back to the roots that have shaped this great state and remind us why the state enacted the Comprehensive Growth Plan in the first place. The purpose of the law was to eliminate annexation out of fear, to establish incentives to annex or incorporate where appropriate, to match the timing and development and provision of services, and stabilize the county's education funding base and establish an incentive for each county to be more interested in education matters and minimize urban sprawl. Before 1955, the control to annex and set boundaries was in the hands of the state legislature. Since the explosive growth post-World War II, the municipality saw rings of factory slums and overcrowded neighborhoods springing up around their boundaries. So the state had worked between the 1955 and the 1970s to change the law to put more control in the hands of the local municipalities. And in particular, the 1955 Act presumed that the municipalities would act reasonably, but they did not always act reasonably. And they were still ignoring the voices of local residents. The overarching trend has been towards decentralized power.
10 seconds.
We are asking you all to work with us to be good neighbors so that we can come to a decision that we all agree with.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Mr. Ken Davis, Thomas Stevenson, and following that is Adam Mercher.
Good morning and thank you. My name is Ken Davis. I live in the Harpeth Woods community and on Pete's Place. Williamson County has one of the top-rated school systems in the country, and that attracts some of it does attract people to our community for the fine schools. And in the near-term growth projections make this ability to be excellent more difficult. The Williamson County school system has a 5-year capital improvement plan, which is updated every year. The current plan projects in the 2024 to 28 enrollment growth of 4,400 students and funding for new schools and renovations costing $420 million. But our Thompson Station and Spring Hill local governments have internally approved about 9,000 new housing units not in the Williamson County plan. This would require 45 new schools and a current projected cost of over $3.4 billion. Staffing is another challenge. We know teachers and support personnel are in demand and salary demands are increasing with inflation. In fact, we know shortages are currently impacting our students, as you've already heard from Jacob. Based on current statistics, 9,000 additional housing units would require 1,100 additional teachers as well as additional support staff. These additional expenses will increase property taxes for all of our county residents. Therefore, it's critical as a community we carefully plan for future needs to maintain our current excellent schools and consider those of us impacted by the growth. Please vote no in order to allow Spring Hill and Thompson Station more time to sit down with their affected neighbors and come to a mutual agreement so that when the time comes to vote yes, we can all sleep better at night. Thank you.
Mr. Stevenson?
Good morning. My name is Thomas Stevenson. I also live in the Harpeth Woods subdivision off of Lewisburg Pike. What you'll see today from Thompson Station is a revised UGB plan. And first, we want to acknowledge Thompson Station's willingness to revise their plan. We want to thank you, Mayor Stover and Micah, for making changes here. However, these changes do not address and resolve the underlying issue at hand. Removing our subdivision alone, but leaving all the land around us in the UGB still presents the same issue. We'll be surrounded by upzoned neighborhoods, homes, commercial properties, apartments, and townhomes sooner rather than later. We understand those of you on this committee don't want to tell another municipality what to do in their town, and we respect that. However, as residents of the county, we need a voice. We feel that we're being encroached on by a town in which we do not live, we cannot vote, and we cannot run for office in. We feel as if we have very little representation in this matter. However, this committee can and should be our voice in this matter. And additionally, as county residents, Mayor Anderson, you and the County Commission are our voice. And so we ask that you, Mayor Anderson, and the county commissioners on this committee vote in a way that represents the wishes of the citizens you represent in the county. A successful path here is when the committee can vote yes on the proposed UGB, knowing it's been approved with the input from the very residents it affects, rather than at our expense. So we ask that you vote no in order to allow Thompson Station and Spring Hill more time to sit down with their affected neighbors and come to a mutual agreement. Thank you.
Mr. Mercer. Next, following him will be Max Curry. Following Mr. Curry will be Janet Curtis.
Good morning, esteemed committee members. My name's Adam Melcher, and I reside in the Harpeth Woods subdivision. I want to start by expressing my gratitude towards Micah and Mayor Stover and the town of Thompson Station for their initial steps towards being a better neighbor and listening to our concerns. This gesture, however, although much appreciated, has not addressed our primary issue. Urban growth boundary. The name says it all. The urban growth boundary was created to protect rural areas from the threat of urban sprawl. Yet we now find ourselves threatened by the very thing that was supposed to protect us. We see new developments all along Lewisburg Pike, and we're scared. We're scared for our neighborhoods. And we're scared that what we thought was a government by the people and for the people might not be so. Fundamentally, this is about our rights as homeowners and American citizens to have a voice in decisions impacting our homes. We did not choose to be a part of Thompson Station and should not be bound by decisions we cannot influence. Removing Harpeth Woods from the proposed urban growth boundary is a step in the right direction, but it doesn't address our concerns when the surrounding areas are now turned into open season for developers, which is what will happen if they are in the proposed urban growth boundary. John Schroer, you said on August 29th that one person shouldn't change the whole character of a neighborhood in an area, and the only way that they can do that is if they're in an urban growth boundary. We aren't landowners of the day. We plan to be here for a long time. However, being a good neighbor hinges on understanding cooperation and the pursuit of shared growth. So what does a successful path forward look like? A successful path forward is when this committee can vote yes on the proposed urban growth boundary, knowing it's been approved with input from the very residents that it affects, rather than at its expense. Please vote no to allow Spring Hill and Thompson Station more time to sit down with us and come to a mutual agreement, so when the time comes to vote yes, we can all sleep better at night.
Mr. Curry is next, followed by Janet Curtis and Willis Gillum.
I gotta go to work after this, so I didn't wear my yellow shirt. I am Max Curry, 305 Natchez Street, member of Harpeth Woods until very, very recently. I'd like to talk about our future and where we're going as friends and neighbors and as a community. Everyone in this room wearing a yellow shirt is demonstrating their civic duty to the process and their love of our communities. Again, we are not against progress and growth. Change is the one constant in life. Had we as CARE not become actively engaged in this process, this plan would have rolled through with ill effect. To quote Margaret Mead, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." We Citizens Against Reckless Expansion are a small group of thoughtful citizens engaged and committed to positive change, and there would be 3 times as many of us here if this meeting was not at the start of a workday when most of us have to be at work. But they are engaged and watching. I would remind each of you of your duty as elected officials to us as the citizens of these communities. You have been elected to represent our interests and to protect our quality of life as communities within Williamson County. As our elected representatives, your primary duty is to your citizenry, not to outside developers. Again, we are not against change and growth, and these developers are part of that growth and change, but we need to be engaged with them. They don't get to drive the bus. We as citizens and as your elected representatives, you drive the bus, not the developers and outside influencers. When you turn the proverbial bus over to them, what has made these communities so attractive to so many will quickly begin to disappear over the next several years, and then we will become another community that fell to the wayside simply because we lost the vision of where we were going. Thank you.
Next is Janet Curtis, followed by Willis Gillum, and following Mr. Gillum will be Doug Sadler.
Good morning. My name is Janet Curtis, and I live in the Mays Creek Basin area, which is within the City of Franklin's urban growth boundary. The City of Franklin has proposed a special zoning for a large property owner, which is east of North Chapel Road, called Village Green. It can be comprised of single-family residential, duplexes, townhomes, farmstead residential, small-scale multifamily, live, work, and industrial. That type of zoning doesn't fit in with the character of the area, which has ball fields, homes with acreage, and beautiful countryside. Being in the UGB, we are county residents but don't have voting rights as to what happens in the UGB. We take part in surveys and meetings on Envision Franklin, but it appears the citizens' comments have no weight because high density is still being built, even though the citizens overwhelmingly stated that high density is not what they want due to the increase in traffic and traffic congestion. This would they would like to see a transition in the type of homes being built. The City of Franklin just annexed an approved property on Clovercroft Road, which will have 590 plus homes built on it. This will increase the taxes, crowd our schools, and destroy the tranquil life we enjoy. Just by widening Highway 96 east to 4 lanes will not help the traffic issue. Envision Franklin shows that there is a possibility of developing the corner of Highway 96 in North Chapel to commercial. There have been 116 accidents in a 6-mile stretch within 14 miles on Highway 96. I ask you to please keep our tranquil way of life. Do not allow this massive high-density growth within the UGB. Thank you.
What can I say? I'm against it. But Willis Gillum, 2104 Lewisburg Pike. I am in the town of Thompson Station. 12 to 15 years ago, town of Thompson Station approached us about annexing our property. We were promised the moon, sewer, etc. Still 12 to 15 years later, still no sewer, 2 failed sewer systems, $15 million to fix them. Be careful what you wish for. Right now, we need to control the urban growth. We do not need more traffic. We do not need more townhomes. We do not need more subdivisions, etc. Right now on Lewisburg Pike, at 8 o'clock in the morning, you can't get to where you need to go. So they're going to promise you the moon and deliver you nothing. So I close with, be careful what you wish for.
Thank you, Mr. Gillum. Next is Doug Sadler. Following Mr. Sadler is Tara O-R-S-E-R. There you are. And then following that is Charlie. He lives out on Owl Hollow Road. Is there somebody here named Charlie? There you go, Charlie.
Good morning. My name is Doug Sadler. I live at 4650 Gander Branch Road in Williamson County. First of all, I want to state that I'm here representing my son who is away at college. He has actually sent via email to many of y'all, and it's laying on your desk right now. He's a graduate student for public policy. He's written a very well documented report stating all the financials, responsibilities of all the actions we've been talking about today. I was going to hit the highlights, but since we're restricted on time, I'll let y'all read that. Unfortunately, I wanted to point that out because I forgot to put the signature on there. But anyhow, the point of it is financially, this does not work. If you look at the numbers and everything, I went through everybody's budgets, all the cities and everything. Mayor, I can't believe what it would cost, what it will take with the county, with what it has to do to subsidize not only schools, libraries, and everything else, city streets and everything that they have to do. When all this growth happens, where does all this money comes from? Well, I tell you right now, the city of Brentwood, Nolensville, Fairview, y'all are subsidizing Thompson Station, Spring Hill. What about your constituents? Are they ready to pay the extra burden? I mean, Mayor of Brentwood, looked at your budget. I appreciate your hierarchy in there. One thing that it says on there is number one is your citizens. I'm here speaking for your citizens because they're not here to say, hey, we don't want to pay the extra to pay for Thompson Station's expenses. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for letting me speak today. My name is Tara Orser. I live at 1517 Indian Meadows Drive, and I moved here with my family for a better quality of life as we were under high property tax, insufficient infrastructure, and overcrowding conditions where we used to live. I am here requesting that this group of leaders, that the development around us is done in a manner that is in line with the pace of infrastructure. The upzoning around us has raised some suspicions around and brought up to light that each development around us is using drip fields for their wastewater management. Thompson Station has only one piece of the infrastructure to manage, and that is wastewater capacity, yet they are not able to manage this at the pace of development around us. Per Thompson Station website, their new wastewater system will not be operational until 2025. The trend of upzoning and stalling developments need to be addressed, that Thompson Station is not using the valuable land properly with these drip fields. And they should not have additional land in the urban growth before they can provide this, the wastewater management properly. It is not thoughtful leadership. It is not conscientious development. It is not what we want with our quality of life in Williamson County. As a proud resident of this beautiful area, this is not only a concern for my family, but thousands of others. We currently have drip fields close to our east, west, and south sides, and you can imagine on a breezy day what it smells like in our backyard. So for the future, I just think that we should halt this development around us so that they can catch up with the infrastructure. Thank you.
Following Charlie Huffman, John Lee, then Huntley Gordon.
I'll be brief. In mid-90s, I was in Germany visiting friends. He happened to be a city planner. And I asked him, well, what do you do? He pulled out a set of blueprints, and I was amazed at the detail at which they controlled everything a person could do on their own property. And I told him, this never fly in America because we value individual rights and personal property, freedom. I'm afraid that within the next few days, hours, or whatever, that y'all may prove me wrong. Thank you.
Charlie and I are neighbors, so I thought we could walk up here together and save time. I'm John Lee. I live at 3085 Duplex Road. I've been a neighbor of Charlie my whole life, and the two of us have the largest land in the proposed east of I-65 development, or UGB growth for Spring Hill. And Spring Hill keeps saying they've reached out to their stakeholders. Neither one of us were contacted. We contacted 96% of the residents, and none of them have been contacted in this plan. Basically, if this committee allows Spring Hill to include us in their UGB, we would have no representation. The only way I knew this was happening, Judy Herbert reached out to me last spring, and since then I've made numerous efforts to contact Spring Hill and discuss it, and they have never had the courtesy to reply. I feel like we need to stay in this Williamson County UGB. That's where our representatives are, and we're represented with that, and we're happy with the current zoning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Huntley Gordon. Moving on, Kathy Weber. Following Miss Weber would be Andrew Keenan, and then the last one would be Lauren Lewis, if time allows. Kathy?
Good morning. I'm Kathy Weber, and I live in the unincorporated county on the east side. Hearing all this speak and knowing that this process is really important, that we have to be able to plan appropriately for growth, financially and everything. Each one of you municipalities have to be financially responsible to your constituents. So from what I'm hearing and condensing, everybody's saying the same thing. So maybe you, as being representatives of each municipality and governing bodies of our county, can discuss the type of zoning that should occur within the urban growth boundary. If land butts up to the county, I mean, everybody's land use plan is saying to the character of the area, all new development should be the character of the area. You might be within the city and then you come up to the county. So what is that transition? What should it look like? Maybe you guys can discuss how the beauty of this county and the land can be preserved by having zoning within the UGB. And maybe that can be part of the interlocal agreement. Thanks.
This is, I assume, Huntley Gordon? All right.
Good morning. The current UG map, if unchanged, has been in place for over 20 years. TCA 658-106 mandates the municipal obligations. The current municipal obligations include efficiently and effectively providing urban services. The prevailing case law is sensible and acceptable growth. The Southwest Basin for Franklin 2 and Southwest Basin 3 has an unknown timeline to extend services, even though they've been in the urban growth boundary for over 20 years. The city annexation capability analysis is long-term. The city's inability to serve these areas in a timely manner has brought this issue to this committee as the appropriate body to address and mediate these concerns. What is efficient and sustainable growth? Thank you.
Last two, Mr. Andrew Keaton, and then following him be Lauren Lewis.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Andrew Keenan of West Harpeth Road. Thank you for your time to hear us out today. You'll see Thompson Station has made a couple of changes to their UGB map, which was taking out just 3 small existing neighborhoods. While we appreciate the gesture, this does nothing to slow the unsustainable growth occurring. I asked you to consider at least taking out the West Harpeth and Nosad properties from the UGB. This property is 150 acres, and Thompson Station claims they can develop it the same as the county. This is untrue. They plan to use 55 acres right off the bat as a sewage drip field. So that's 150 houses on 95 acres without even having any green space or roads in there that they promise. Thompson Station will describe their ideas, and I think it's an important question to ask them. What is the average lot size in this development? Based on the new plans, it looks like it comes out to roughly quarter-acre lots, which is right in line with their other new developments that are already under construction. Station Hill and Sudbury will be about 0.18 acres. Thomas Downs right next to Indian Meadows is going to be an average of 0.22 acres. This is very different from our 1+ acre lots that help preserve the natural character of the area. We would like to see the county maintain control of this area and preserve the transitional zone between the farms and city centers. In an attempt to make the inclusion of the Ozad property more desirable to surrounding citizens, they're planning a park. We don't want the negatives of the park, including increased traffic and crime. Thompson Station at their last BOMA meeting already planned to put in license plate cameras to read tags going into parks because of crime occurring at their existing parks. The other promise we've been given is to straighten the West Harpeth Road with 2 90-degree corners. This is not going to be a safety increase or a benefit to us. The real issue is the hills, the blind railroad. This will just make people speed up. Bear in mind that all of Thompson Station development is on a drip field system. They say this is part of the green space and development. This is not really what I would consider a green space. I think a better term for this is a brown space.
Thank you.
Please keep us in mind as you go forward making your decision today. We hope that you'll look out for the citizens of the county and your constituents. Thank you very much.
Finally, Ms. Lauren Lewis.
Good morning. My name is Lauren Lewis, 1745 Masters Drive. I live in Keystone. My house backs up to property that is wanting to be annexed into Thompson Station. I think I have a unique perspective because 3 years ago, my husband and I moved here from high-density urban living. We lived in a 1,000-square-foot condo on the 4th floor with 3 kids. I was pregnant and we were homeschooling. Call us crazy, but we made it work. However, we were also surrounded by townhouses, condos, apartment buildings, and houses stacked upon one another. We wanted a place where our kids could have some land to run. And when we came here and drove through Keystone, we said, this is it. We've got an acre, we've got neighbors around, we've got land that my very energetic firstborn can run on. In the last 3 years from living here, we have seen a drastic increase in traffic on Columbia Pike alone. To get out of our neighborhood, sometimes it takes me 4 minutes in the morning to turn left. There are cars coming north from Thompson Station that fly over the hill that are exceeding speed limits. On Snowbird Hollow now, it is being used as a pass-through from Goose Creek Bypass to Columbia Pike. If you've ever driven down Snowbird Hollow, it is not meant to be a pass-through. My kids in the morning go, why are there so many trucks and cars on this? Coming home from school, we saw a flipped over car and the whole road was closed down because people are speeding through Snowbird Hollow. We ask that you are honoring the rural living in Franklin. Please prioritize people over profits and pocketbooks. We don't want high-density living. Please protect what land is left in Franklin. Once you build on it and give it away, you can't get it back. There's nothing you can do once there are houses built stacked upon each other. Please protect this land for our kids. Thank you.
With that, that closes the public hearing this morning. The agenda will be the following. We'll approve the minutes for September 19th. Then I've asked Christy to come up and give us a snapshot. Some of this will be shown up on the screen so that you can follow through it. First order of business this morning will be the approval of the minutes from September the 19th, 2023. I'll entertain a motion to get that on the floor, please. Proper motion. Do I have a second? Second, thank you. Any corrections? Ready to vote? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Let the record reflect it passed unanimously. Christy Ransom will be handling the details of where we have been, where we're going, and in kind of the time frame. I hope everyone on these first two tables have got a copy of the plans that were mailed out. If you will notice today, the voting members are down the middle. The people on the outside of each of the middle rows, they're the support staff that have been offered up for each of the cities and municipalities. Christy?
Okay, good morning. I just passed out to the committee a flow chart of sorts that actually was put together by Tasser many years ago, but it's still applicable. What I'm going to talk about isn't on the screen yet. What I want to talk about is the process. Again, as you all know, that's what I generally talk about when I come up here, is the statutory process. So those of you that have the flow charts, as you see, we're at the top where it says coordinating committee. All the cities in the county did their public hearings. They presented their amendments and are continuing to present amendments to you as the coordinating committee. The next step would be that you all recommend something to go to public hearing. The coordinating committee itself has to have 2 public hearings before anything can be formally voted on to send to the legislative bodies. We have tentatively scheduled the public hearings for November 7th and 8th. We will need to give public notice, according to the statute, 15 days in the newspaper prior to those public hearings. So the timing of this is very important. One thing I wanted to remind you of is, unlike when you do the original growth plan, when you have an amended growth plan, you only have 6 months, committee, from when it's first presented to you to send a recommended plan to the legislative bodies. That's December 13th, okay? It's 6 months from your first convening meeting, which was on June 13th. If you research the law, which is a lot of fun to do, growth plans can be challenged. The standards that the court will review the growth plan is it arbitrary, capricious, or illegal in procedure? Should the committee go past the 6 months without sending a recommended growth plan to the legislative bodies, it would be my opinion that this process would need to cease. Because at that point, if you then recommended something after the 6 months and sent it to the legislative bodies, you would be acting outside the scope of your authority. It could be challenged potentially as a legal procedure. So, having said all that, let's back into it. We would probably need to give notice to get to public hearings on the 7th and 8th. Tomorrow, need to send it to the paper tomorrow to get the 15 days notice. If we have to meet again in a week or two, then we'll have to push those back. But again, we have to have the 15 days notice. There have to be the 2 public hearings from the committee. Then the committee will have to meet again to take some action to send something to the legislative bodies before December 13th. That's when the 6 months starts. Once a recommended plan is sent to the legislative bodies have 120 days to either ratify it or reject it. If a legislative body rejects the plan that's recommended to them, it must send it back to the coordinating committee with reasons why. And then the coordinating committee can either send it out changed, send it back like you had it. And just to let you know, once that ratification or rejection is sent back within the 120 days, there really aren't any additional clocks, okay? In fact, those of you that might have been around the first time, I believe the coordinating committee went back and forth with the legislative bodies multiple times. It's just getting through those first couple of deadlines, okay? The way the statute reads is if you go back and forth, the legislative body rejects it, goes back out, another one rejects it, goes back out. There's not a limit on how many times that can happen. What the statute does say, however, is any time after that, one of those legislative bodies can declare an impasse. The statute says may, not shall. So you don't have to declare an impasse. So again, you can go back and forth if you need to. But once the impasse is declared, now we're handing it off to the administrative law judges. Okay, the way that works is, and that's why I gave you the flow chart. The Secretary of State will impanel a panel of administrative law judges, 1, 2, or 3. That panel will try and mediate with the legislative bodies to come to an urban growth plan. If that mediation works, then it's sent back out for adoption, and then it goes to the Local Government Planning Advisory Committee, who is ultimately who signs off on it. If for some reason the mediation doesn't work and that plan is rejected, a new panel of administrative law judges is impaneled, and they make a growth plan for you. And that is then sent to the Local Government Planning Advisory Committee. And either way, if the Local Government Planning Advisory Committee gets this plan where it's not coming with a unanimous approval from the legislative bodies without the ALJs involved, they're going to review it too. And then the LGPAC can make some changes and give you your growth plan without change at the local level. So I just wanted you to know there are some safety valves, but there are also some hard stops that are built in the statute so that these don't go on forever and ever and ever. Again, if you don't meet the 6 months where you as a coordinating committee are sending a recommended plan to the legislative bodies, it is my opinion that we have to stop and then start over at some point. The cities and the county will have to do their 2 public hearings again to present an amendment to the coordinating committee. The coordinating committee will have to be impaneled again. So just keep all that in mind as you deliberate, not to sound like a school teacher up here. My mom was one, so sometimes I can sound like her. But I just wanted to let you know what the deadlines are. There's a lot of moving parts to this, but from a practical standpoint, we're running out of time. So that's it. Thank you.
So our next process on our agenda is to look at the individual jurisdiction updates regarding proposed boundaries. To be sure that I'm fair to all concerned, I don't remember who we started with last time. Spring Hill started last time? So guess who gets to start this time? We'll start with Thompson Station. If you will come up and make your individual jurisdiction updates regarding the boundaries, whoever wants to, 1 or 2 people could come up and address the board this morning. Mayor?
Thank you all. So the town has submitted a revised UGB map for the coordinating committee to look at. As mentioned, we have removed some of the subdivisions that in question did not want to be in the UGB. Some of those being along West Harpeth Road, Harpeth Woods subdivision, as well as properties along the north side of the Harpeth-Paytonville Road. So those changes have been submitted and completed. These changes are in response to feedback from citizens and the coordinating committee while balancing the future needs of the town. The town understands the concerns raised and submits the revised UGB map to address those concerns. We believe that the revised map accomplishes the goals of the growth plan. These changes are to adhere to sound planning principles employed by the town. I might add that this is the 4th revision that we've done to this map. It is the 3rd since I took office last December. So there's some comments being said that we don't listen to certain comments, but we do. That's why we have a 3rd revision of this. We've done everything we can to take as much input in, but also accomplish the goals of proper sound balance of what we're trying to accomplish here. All the efforts have been an exercise in balancing the best interests of everyone involved. For emphasis, the interlocal agreement accomplishes what we're trying to propose, can accomplish many things. The interlocal agreement bars annexation outside of a jurisdiction's UGB, thus ensuring more orderly and responsible growth within UGBs. Second, the interlocal agreement requires the growth plan to be revisited in 5 years in an effort to keep the growth plan more up to date. Finally, the interlocal agreement sets up a standing advisory committee to address ongoing concerns and sets up a forum for more cooperation between all of us here today. The main goal is for all of us to work together. If we all don't work together as a team, we don't accomplish what we want. So we need to kind of get to that goal. Our goal of the coordinated committee is to ensure appropriate planning and measured growth in our county by adopting an updated growth plan with UGB maps for all municipalities. An outdated growth plan and continued annexations outside of the UGB only creates more uncoordinated growth and more cost for services. So with that, do you have anything else you'd like to add? This is what we have presented for everyone for your review.
Stand by.
All right. So
You stay here.
all right.
There we go. All right, questions from the committee on the new proposal from Thompson Station, as you heard from the mayor. Questions?
Show us on the map. I want to make sure we're all understanding.
Question was, we're going to try to direct these as best we can. Did you bring a pointer?
Of course I did.
Thank you.
For $8, you can have one of these.
So the question was, would he point out some of the changes that were made on the map so everyone could see it?
So can you see the cursor on the screen?
Yeah.
So this is the area, this is West Harpeth Road right here. So all of these properties were taken out. And then this is Harpeth Woods, this is Lewisburg Pike. All of these properties were taken out all the way along Harpeth's Paytonsville Road.
That answered your question, Eric. Other questions for the committee members who vote? Chaz?
What's the net increase in acreage that Thompson Station has had?
Oh gosh, I don't have that off the top of my head. We can email that to the committee. It's pretty moderate as compared to most other.
Try to stay with the microphone so everyone can hear.
It's comparable to what some of the other UGBs are, quite honestly, and what
All
we're
right,
taking in.
let's hold our comments now. Can you hear back there? Okay.
Here's the existing map.
The question was, what is the net acreage increase, Chaz?
This is the.
Just to navigate the maps, what I'm showing here, by the way, my name's Greg Dale. This is the existing growth area, and this is the proposed growth area. So you can see the kind of before and after. It doesn't give you the number, but it gives you the visual.
Can you toggle that a couple of times?
Yeah. Before, after. Before, after. That good?
You want it again, Jason? Hold it down, Greg, let them look at it.
So that's the current, and that's the proposed. And that's in your, in the documents that you have in front of you as well.
So other than getting the actual acreage, was there anything else, Chaz, you wanted?
I did have a second question. I don't know if this is on yet, but I don't know if there's something. Oh, now turn it off. Now it works. There we go. I heard reference to interlocal agreements that appear to help address questions of ability to annex without consent from neighboring jurisdictions. That's how I'm hearing that. I don't think I've seen copies of those, and since I haven't heard about those interlocal agreements from all of the municipalities and all of the council, I want to know that those do in fact exist and that these representations match everybody else's understanding of those, and when we'll see those or how we would vote on those, and could our approval be conditioned upon the acceptance of those?
Okay, you're much taller than me, Mayor Stover. So the answer to the question is there is right now.
Why don't you restate the question, if you don't mind, Christian?
Okay, I'll restate it really short. Commissioner Morton is asking about the interlocal agreement that has been referenced in a number of conversations and if it exists and actually kind of what the contents are. As a basic matter, there is one interlocal agreement, sometimes also referred to as intergovernmental agreement, that the attorneys for all the jurisdictions have been meeting and discussed. So it's a single one that all the jurisdictions would sign off on. It would have to be approved at the same time that the growth plan is approved. And that's why I haven't seen it yet, because we haven't had anything to send out yet, but we're close. The attorneys have all come to an agreement on a draft, but it's not been circulated just yet. It does have the requirements in it that the growth plan be revisited in every 5 years, or at least in 5 years, that there cannot be annexation outside of the UGB, and that this advisory or implementation committee be created to meet on a regular basis. Right now, I believe it says quarterly at least, to follow up on not only the implementation of the growth plan, but also any other regional issues for discussion. Now, in some of the conversations over the course of this process, there have been other discussions about other interlocal agreements. And there's nothing concrete about that at this time. But the reason it's been brought up is kind of like someone mentioned about zoning that would happen in the UGB in the interim while it's still in county jurisdiction. Perhaps that's something that maybe the county would consider having interlocal with one of the jurisdictions to address that. Or working with a different jurisdiction on how that interim policy should be. That's something that this implementation committee could discuss. That's something that could result in being addressed by an interlocal agreement or the county zoning it a certain way. But until there's a revised UGB, there's no reason for the county to revisit the zoning in the current UGBs, which we have as MGA zoning districts. Does that answer your question? It's more than you wanted, but there have been mentions of other interlocals, so I thought it was important to make sure that those aren't concrete. They've just been ideas.
Judy?
I guess my concern is, you're supposed to contact each person that involved. Nobody was contacted, it was just put on a website. And even when people said they don't want to be in it, you continue to put them in the UGB. The city of Franklin, I know for a fact that they sent everybody that affected a letter, and if they said, I don't want to be in the UGB, they omitted them. Why do y'all continue to put people in there if they don't want to be in there? You promise them they're not going to be in there. Why do you put them in there when they're saying we don't want to be? Anyway, it's their property. And also my other concern is, just like we had someone speak, he's been in the city of Thompson Station for 15 years and he's not received any services. It's not right for everybody else in the county to provide police services and fire and rescue services for Thompson Station. Why don't you try taking care of what you've already got now instead of...
We'll address the first one. Mike, you can answer this with me. Is the reason the planning is being done the way it is proper planning. It's to ensure proper planning. It doesn't mean that anything's actually going to happen with the land.
All right. We're trying to get through the process. I know you're passionate about it, but let us, you can't hear in the back? Speak into the mics the best we can, but we need to get through the process if we can. Thank you.
The reason the map is drawn the way it is right now is for proper planning, and that's what we've done. Now, to give you an example of our planning of what we've done, mass thoroughfare planning and our all-aboard planning plan have just both won awards for towns smaller than 50,000 people. We plan properly of what we're going to be doing in the future. That's how it's done. To answer your second question, I told you last meeting, I am trying to work towards getting other services provided to the town. It's not going to happen overnight. I just took over in December. One of my goals, as I have clearly stated before, was to create proper police protection for the town of Thompson Station. First step in doing that was getting our new town hall built, because under state law, you have to have a place to house a police department. That's law. This was my first step. I've got to go through a process to get all this done. I can't get it done overnight. We have plans of what we're going to be doing. We understand that we're a town that's probably close to 10,000 residents right now, and I agree with you. We need to provide our own services. That man right there is the one who taught me that about 5 years ago when I sat down and met with him when I ran for office the first time. We cannot continue relying on the county to provide us services. We have to do it ourselves as well. I understand that, but I can't do it overnight. We need this map to help plan it. We need a UGB, a unified UGB, to get there to do that. I'm not in disagreement with you at all. I want my own police department. I have services that I need to get done that the county cannot do because it's not within the scope of what they accomplish. But I need time to do that. So it is being planned. It's going to be done. Promise you that.
Other questions? Other questions? Excuse me, Mayor Gorman?
Brian, thanks. You all have made some progress in terms of carving out some of the folks that don't want to be on UGB. Can you all flip back to the more detailed map, and can you show this committee the folks that don't want to be, the parcels that don't want to be part of the UGB? It seems that there are still several folks that have concerns that don't want to be a part of the UGB.
I don't know that we can point to individual property owners that don't want to be. I mean, we can try to get you. I mean, we have property owners that do want to be in. That include the long property on the west side of Harpeth Woods. Yeah, right there, that long parcel. Right here. So that property owner has requested to be within the town's urban growth boundary. But what we tried, the most volume of people that we've heard that wanted to be removed from the urban growth boundary were in Harpeth Woods and Indian Meadows. So we took those properties out, those subdivisions out.
Please.
Thank you for that clarification. I go back to individual property rights, and if somebody doesn't want to be in your UGB, an individual property owner, how can you force them into your urban growth boundary? I understand the term proper planning and all that type of stuff, but that should be within the jurisdiction that you already have, and then folks that want to be part of your urban growth boundary. In my opinion, maybe this committee, there's a bunch of different personalities and individuals here. feel different. But unless somebody wants to be part of the UGB, that individual property owner has rights.
Correct. Well, and that's correct. So the annexation is at the property owner's request. The growth plan, it's a planning document. It's not an annexation plan or anything like that. It allows for service planning for municipalities. So that's how we approached it.
What would you all say to removing property owners that don't want to be a part of UGB? And I understand the difference between UGB and annexation. However, UGB is the start of annexation, right? It's heading in that direction. But what would you all say to just removing those property owners and valuing their rights if they don't want to be part of the UGB?
Again, this, as the mayor said, this is our fourth major revision to the urban growth map that we've done. So I think we've shown a willingness to take people out where we can, where we still think we can do proper planning based on the plan that we've submitted to y'all. So
respectfully, I appreciate you all wanting to do proper planning, but you've got to plan where you're allowed to plan. And I say that very respectfully, but if somebody doesn't want to be part of your UGB, who are you to force them into?
All right, let me move on. Any other questions? Jason?
Thank you all for speaking to police and fire. You mentioned this at our most recent meeting. Can you speak to the projected timeline for those additional urban services?
at the last BOMA meeting, I actually requested that our town administrator begin working with MTAS and looking at some of these situations. I mean, it could be could be 2 to 3 years before you ever get those services. It has to take proper planning to be able to put that in place. There's nothing that we can do overnight. If you just throw something together, it's not going to work. We must plan for that long term. And with that comes an incurred cost of what we're going to do and how we're going to do that. We have to look at different paths, different avenues of how we're going to fund some of that. I'm trying to figure out a way of development funding certain services. As we've talked about, again, the task force we're on with the fire department, how do we sustain the volunteer fire department for the county long term with all the costs incurred, because they're a volunteer fire department, which is the way the county has ran for 30, 40 years?
Forever.
Yeah, forever. So we have to look at all of that as an incurred cost and the planning that goes in with it of what we're going to do. It's just not going to be overnight. I can't answer that question to give you a certain timeline.
Thank you. With respect to the sewer, well, I've heard comments about projected dates of completion of sewer projects, et cetera. Can you all share with us details of the sewer plans?
Sure. Pretty much everything is signed off on for the new plant. I believe it should start under construction, so it's underway right now of what we're going to be doing. 18 to 24 months is the timeline for April of 25 is when the new plant will be in process. Basically, it'll be going into where the current site is, and that's where we will be doing most of the construction. As far as the drip field land and the discharge, that is completely out of our control. Unless someone wants to go lobby TDEC to get us a discharge permit, that is what we have to do. We would love to be out of the land business. Trust me, I've been fighting it for 5 years. I do not want to be in the land business. We had to personally buy property behind my subdivision that we have that we will be using for drip field land. That is what we have to do. That is what the state of Tennessee has told us. We are one of three or four towns, cities in the state of Tennessee that has to discharge underground. Until we are allowed to discharge into a stream, that's what we have to do.
We face similar issues with some of our newer rural schools, the point discharge system versus addressing it on property. So we've experienced that where we need to buy additional acres to make sure that works when we have to build. Final question, have you all discussed the differentiation between residential and commercial and industrial in this UGB plan? Okay, thank you.
Sure. One of the things, real quick, one of the things we did address last year with the drip field land is something that was never in place before I got into office. We now make new development pay for that land. You either have to come with the land or you have to come with the money in lieu of to be able to get that. Before, the town was responsible for purchasing that. Hence the land behind my subdivision, we paid a little over $1 million to get that piece of land. We paid about $500,000 to get the other property on the hill land, the hill property. So that has all been changed. We have addressed those changes. Development has to pay for the growth.
Actually, Mr. Goldman, we actually have done our all-aboard planning process, did future planning for the growth plan. All of our growth plan land is residential. We don't have any, there's some right along the corridor of Lewisburg Pike that may be commercial, but the town doesn't really anticipate any industrial growth, so.
You've already spoken, Judy. Eric?
And this is probably as much for the county as it is for you all, but I want to walk through and understand the difference in the property that is that 150 acre property and what Thompson Station development looks like versus county. I've heard the statement that it would be roughly the same, but by definition, the sewer treatment's going to be different. Wastewater is handled differently in the county than your system. So I'm trying to understand how we get there. And so walk me through that, and I'd like the county to walk through what it would look like if it's developed in the county, because that's one of the questions. And then talk also, to the extent you can, about other types of infrastructure and service delivery in that area, because that's a pretty critical question, is how that piece develops. And I'd like to understand the difference in a county development versus the Thompson Station development. We had some citizens question that and what that would look like. I think it would look different. You might end up with the same total units, but help us understand that.
As Mike's
Let me get Mike up to explain the county side, and then we'll let you all deal with the town of Thompson Station.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you, Eric. So the property is currently zoned MGA 1. The one is there representing 1 dwelling unit per acre. That's a maximum residential density that's allowed in that zoning district. Currently, the zoning requires 1 acre lots. So, once you get roads and a little bit of open space, you're probably not going to get 150 lots on that 150 acres. I can't tell you exactly what that would yield in terms of numbers, but the maximum density is 1 unit per acre. Does that help?
So we'd be talking about 1 acre lots, probably served by individual septic systems or something that would happen there, as opposed to something that's sort of surrounded by the drip field component and then have a more dense development. I guess that's the Thompson Station question, but that's the fundamental difference, right?
Well, I would say it's not more dense. There's just a different form, of development. The town's overall development strategy is clustered development, conservation subdivisions. The town prioritizes open space generally rather than open space in 1 acre lots to lessen sprawl. So that's why we set it at the equivalent of the 1 unit per acre maximum, because that was what the county zoning allows for.
But you would likely have some smaller lots.
Oh, yes, we have.
Do you have any sense of what that would be? Somebody did back of the envelope kind of math. Do you have a sense of what that might likely be?
We can provide, I don't know if we did provide, but we can provide the lowest put it in the agreement.
Okay, all right. That would be helpful.
Get your question answered, Eric. Others on the committee.
Does Thompson Station want to say anything else? That you covered a lot of the other infrastructure and services, but anything else to help us differentiate county development versus in Thompson Station?
No, just understanding that, again, the drip field land is kind of part of the green space. That's what our code determines. Plus, the development has also included building a park and redirecting the road redoing that to reconfigure that as well. So they've added in a lot of that. To give you a comparison kind of what the subdivision would look like if you've ever been over to where we're at, Bridgemore Village, kind of like that. I think that was the rough math of what we put together, something like that. So that's kind of in the ballpark range of what it would look like.
Follow up, Eric. Other members on the committee that haven't spoke? All right. Mayor?
Hi. The area that you were pointing to that wants to be in your urban growth boundary, is that a residence, an individual, or is that a developer?
The developer owns the land. He has bought the land. He's owned the land for, I don't know how many years. Yeah, it's owned by a developer.
Okay, so that would make sense that he would want to be in, because then he would be able to do higher density than.
Not necessarily, no, ma'am. He is currently under Franklin's, and Franklin has long said they cannot service the land. That's why he's asking to be brought into Thompson Station, so he can be provided the services.
But right now where he's at, he can only do 1 house per acre.
5 acres.
Oh, sorry, 5 acres. No.
The density of the Ozad property, that Ozad North, is we've worked in agreement with the property owner so that it's equivalent with the. Oh, I thought you were talking about Ozad. I'm sorry, Greg. Which property are you asking about?
The property that's owned by a developer that your urban growth boundary will include.
On the Lewisburg Heights?
On the east side.
On the east side. We have had zero discussions with the developer about development. It would have to conform to what our comprehensive plan requires. If they came in for annexation, we would zone it T2, which is 1 unit per every 8 acres. And then they would have to come in to show the planning commission and the board what exactly they wanted to develop.
But right now, it's 1 house per acre.
That is 1 per 5 acres, sorry.
1 per 5 acres. And if they come into the urban growth boundary and they're approved, then they can do high density.
I guess, is it 1 per 5? Yes, so obviously, yes. I mean, so the developer does have an incentive to be included in growth.
So the other residents that you're wanting to bring in that are not wanting to be in, what's the importance of bringing them in to your urban growth boundary?
Again, for the kind of facility planning that the town is doing, again, we're looking at the growth plan as a planning document. And so to be able to do proper facilities for police and for the sewer infrastructure and things like that, we felt it was important to include properties along the Lewisburg Pike corridor, where there is, especially when there's a new interchange that's in Spring Hill that's going to be completed. There's going to be a tremendous growth pressure in that area. So again, we're trying to get out ahead of any of that with this facilities planning.
Since this is going to be revisited every 5 years, wouldn't it be better to get your services in place before including the people that don't want to be?
Actually, you need it in the map to plan for the services over the next 5 years. That's how you plan. If it's not in there, you can't do the proper planning. It's kind of the inverse of that.
That answer your question?
Thank you.
Other members, question? Mayor?
You're so, Zaman can hear me. I do appreciate the information that you shared. One thing I hope every member of the committee kind of takes into perspective, and I think that Nolensville shares this in common with Thompson Station, is that as a newer city, not one that's been around for as long as Franklin, not one that's been around as long as Brentwood has been clearly established, it is very difficult for cities like Thompson Station and cities like, or towns like Nolensville to do that long-term planning. And it is not something that happens overnight, just like Mayor Stover shared. We just created our fire department, and it was painful. I mean, it is something that, so I applaud your all's planning for that. I would also share that when we look at the overall land area in each of the urban growth boundaries, some of the things that are being asked specifically for Thompson Station to explain, I'm not sure that each member of this committee has articulated to the rest of the committee. For example, for Fairview, around the 840 area, I haven't heard your plan for service in that, and it's a fairly large expansion. I'm not questioning that you have that plan in place, but I would just encourage each of us as committee members to know that in this small meeting, we're not going to be able to articulate every single aspect of how those services are going to be delivered over the next couple of years. But I do have respect for each of you to know that you put a tremendous amount of thought into that, and that it is something that's in place. So just a couple of thoughts as we're going through this.
Other comments? It's very difficult to hear other cities and not want to make comments on. So your point's well taken. That there are some cities that are not going to make any changes. Absolutely. I think Brentwood is one of those that's offered really no major change in your plan. Fairview's asked for some growth. Franklin has asked for some minor changes. The county is reflective of all of the cities, but very good point. Good thing to remember. All right, we're going to move on to Spring Hill. Mayor? Yeah, we'll borrow Thompson Station's planner, or pointer.
Let's start with this one. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jim Hagman. I'm the mayor of Spring Hill, Tennessee, and thank you for being here. Spring Hill is divided up into 4 wards, and each ward that we have has 2 aldermen that represent it. So that's 8 aldermen and 1 mayor, which encompasses the board of mayor and aldermen. We take very serious the team approach to everything that we do, to include all the elected officials as well as the staff. And so we are in constant communication with one another with regards to how things need to develop and run with the city. So because of that team approach concept, I'd like to introduce one of our aldermen. His name is Trent Linville, Alderman Trent Linville, and people have different passions for things, as you guys know, but it's important for me as a team leader to make sure that all of our aldermen are represented equally. And so for this, I'm going to ask Alderman Linville, who is an outstanding spokesman and an outstanding man, sir, to come brief you on this, because that's how we roll with the team. Thank you. Alderman Linville.
Can we have both sides up there? Yeah, I mean, I think the overall, that's perfect. Yeah. All right. I want to thank Mayor Hagman for having me here today. By the way, my name is Trent Linville. I'm one of the aldermen in Spring Hill. I want to thank the committee also for giving Spring Hill the opportunity to discuss the careful process that we've undergone in designing our request for our urban growth boundary. At your last meeting, Spring Hill heard your call loud and clear for additional information in our rationale for our proposal. And so in your packet, you've received a detailed breakdown from our city staff that was adopted by the BOMA on our thought process. And I hope to highlight some of those points for you today. This committee is charged with evaluating whether each city has met its requirements under Tennessee Code Section 6-58-106. I won't recite those requirements to you all today because I know the committee is well aware of those requirements. You all are taking a thoughtful approach to evaluating our plan in light of those things. As a reminder, inclusion into an urban growth boundary simply allows the property owner to opt into annexation into the city should the property owner ever want to be part of a municipality. If they never want to be part, they don't have to. We aren't making annexation decisions because cities cannot annex without the property owner's consent. It also does not prevent landowners from requesting annexation by referendum on their own accord. And so for Spring Hill specifically, back in July, Spring Hill adopted our proposal for our urban growth boundary after over 2 years of public engagement, where multiple town hall meetings were held for stakeholders to provide input. We gave notice to every potentially affected landowner and updated information on our city's website prior to the adoption of our proposal. What has resulted since is a modified version of our original proposal. Currently, Spring Hill has no Williamson County urban growth boundary as a result of the process in the early 2000s. There are 2 areas of UGB expansion that Spring Hill has proposed, and I will deal with these one at a time. So you'll see on the west side of the map is what we call the northwest urban growth boundary. The board made a decision a couple of weeks ago to remove additional properties from the northwestern UGB from the last proposal that you all saw a few weeks back. The residents who had previously opposed Spring Hill's proposal advocated adoption of the proposal that we are presenting today. There are a few reasons that this area is important to Spring Hill as expressed by our board. First off, this area is part of the Duck River watershed, which is important to Spring Hill. It's where all of Spring Hill's water comes from. The area of the UGB is the UGB is the only part of Williamson County that is in the Duck River watershed. While we've removed much of this area, it is important that the board places something on the map here that indicates when this is revisited, there should be additional discussions about this area. Moreover, as you can see, this area is contiguous with Spring Hill's Murray County urban growth boundary, so it creates continuity in that aspect as well. The second portion is what we call the eastern UGB. Yes, I will. So this is the eastern portion of the UGB here. And so you see this area to the east of I-65, south of Thompson Station Road, and west of Lewisburg Pike. The board voted to keep this proposed UGB fully intact from the previous proposal that you saw. There are a few reasons why this is important to Spring Hill. First off, we have invested over $80 million in infrastructure investment to construct the interstate interchange at Buckner Road. This will be the first time that Spring Hill has had direct interstate access to I-65. The city won a $25 million federal grant to aid with the construction of this area, and as part of that investment, we were required by the federal grant process to construct the eastern connector to 431, now known as June Lake Boulevard, in addition to the interchange itself. The resulting growth that will occur is best served by Spring Hill if it were to fall within any municipality. Secondly, this area is territory that a reasonable and prudent person would project as a likely site of growth over the next 20 years. It is part of the Spring Hill Rising 2040 plan. And then as outlined in the staff report today, the city can reasonably serve this area with services including but not limited to sewer, water, police, and fire services, which would relieve county services being expanded into this area, or being expended to serve this area. Third, it allows Spring Hill to facilitate economic development along the I-65 corridor. We know that growth, especially commercial growth, is coming to this area with the completion of the interstate exit within the next few months. There is not an interchange between Franklin and Nashville that is not fully developed, and it is all but certain that this new exit will be targeted for significant commercial investment. And then fourth, the territory must be reasonably compact, yet sufficiently large to accommodate residential and non-residential growth, projected to occur during the next 20 years. Our proposal has clear, logical bounds for our request. The proposal is bounded by our city limits to the north and west, Highway 431 to the east, and the county line to the south. These all have a reasonable justification and is reasonably compact to accommodate projected potential growth in the next 20 years. This is why we believe these two areas are important to Spring Hill from a planning perspective over the next 20 years. We believe this plan is thoughtful and defensible, both from this committee's perspective and from a judicial perspective. With this being said, over the past 20 years, Spring Hill admittedly has a well-deserved reputation for not planning with foresight. Decades of turbo growth, decisions to have made to eliminate property tax for a few years, and then upzone property across the city to try to stimulate the growth rate has ramifications that the board is still dealing with decades later. But the leadership that is in place right now has a markedly different approach that emphasizes reasonable growth. Our ask to this committee is that you would allow us to thoughtfully plan for the growth that we know is coming, rather than, once again, being simply forced to react to the growth as it comes. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
So, I guess, and this is the same way with Thompson Station and Spring Hill. You know, the one complaint I get from everybody that's in this county is the rapid growth. They're tired of the rapid growth, as we say, it's in the county, growth does not pay for itself. When I see all this development that y'all are all looking at, all it means is there's gonna be more schools, and that's gonna mean more taxes raised for the rest of the county. And I don't understand, you know, that was your choice to put that money in that area. These people did not ask for that. And why you can't just, people along the I-65 that do want to be in your urban growth, why you can't put them in and exclude the rest?
That's a great question. So I really appreciate this question because there are some pretty key differences between the east side and the west side as we see it. As I discussed earlier, we know that growth is coming to this area with the completion of the interstate exit within the next few months. Like I said, there's not an interchange between Franklin and Nashville that's not fully developed. We're next up. The question becomes, do we simply respond to that growth, or do we help guide the growth strategically and intentionally? And so the board's approach is that a holistic planning approach allows us to attempt to promote economic development along that I-65 corridor while also thoughtfully blending out into the rural nature of Williamson County as we approach 431 in the Bethesda community. And so we simply don't want to repeat the poor development choices that caused decades of hypergrowth. That's why we want to take a holistic planning approach to this area. And just as a reminder, this is not an annexation decision. If landowners don't want to be in Spring Hill, they don't ever have to. This is simply a planning approach that allows us to take those steps to thoughtfully plan for what comes next.
I don't think that's what some of the residents have been told. They've been told, basically, we're gonna take you. Remember, I just don't understand, if it's their property, why you, and they're saying, I don't wanna be in, that means 10 years from now, they're not gonna wanna be in. Why you just don't exclude them?
I think it goes back to, what's been discussed by Thompson Station. This allows us to take a holistic approach at planning. What does thoughtful growth look like? But it is not opposing any additional obligations or duties on the landowners. They simply do not have to be part of Spring Hill if they never want to.
Talk a little bit about the land use planning on that east side. What do you envision that land use to look like? What kind of mix? And you've obviously done some planning for the Murray County side of that. What do you think the Williamson looks like?
Yeah, so I think kind of what this will look like is if you look at, if I could see the pointer here. So you can take this. Yeah. So on the Murray County side, we currently have a significant economic development project that's been proposed down here, and it is vested at this point. And so we know that this is in play here. And so the thought is likely that, again, at the discretion of landowners who want to be part of Spring Hill, that it makes sense that areas next to the interstate, just like we see all and up and down the I-65 corridor, are likely to be more commercial in nature. And we also know that out when you go, the closer you get to Lewisburg Pike, it has a more rural, natural characteristic. And so our thought is to thoughtfully blend that in so that you have less density the further away that you get from I-65. And so we would likely see commercial, along the 65 corridor, but then reducing any sort of density the further you get to Lewisburg Pike.
Okay, so I'm going to clarify something. I do respect what you're saying about planning, and
Mayor, let's direct your conversations to me without going to other individuals. Let's try to keep everything.
She brought up Fairview, so I'm going to just answer that.
Again, we're on the topic here today. I understand you can address it to me about that, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir. Okay, so respectfully, I understand that we all have to plan. And I can speak to Fairview and how I see all of this working as far as us making a decision. We have expanded our urban growth boundary, and the difference is we've had 2 public hearings and our people are excited about what we're doing. So we haven't had any opposition. So that's where I'm coming at it, with it being evaluated or us coming back in 5 years, that has to be looked at as far as what the citizens are asking for not to be in the urban growth boundary and who are okay with that. So with our process, when we ask for our citizens to come to a public hearing, no matter what our plans are, they were in favor of our urban growth boundary. And I think that's where we're having issues is, if we're reevaluating this every 5 years and we're looking at a plan, then we need to, provide the services and listen to the people right now. So that's.
Other questions from the committee? Jason?
Similar question to what I asked Thompson Station earlier. Have you all discussed the differentiation between residential, commercial, and industrial in this proposed UGB?
It's part of our long-term Spring Hill 2040 Horizon planning, so yes.
Follow up, Jason. Good. Other questions from the committee members? Mayor?
Very similar comment to Thompson Station comments. If folks that are the property owners wanted to be in the UGB, they would come to you and say, we want to be in the UGB. If they don't, they shouldn't be subject to it. To them, what's going on in the city of Spring Hill doesn't really matter, right? They're in the county. They don't pay taxes. So for us as government leaders to impose something on someone's private property, I think is wrong. I appreciate what y'all are trying to do from a planning perspective, but we're going to be back at this in 5 years. Carve them out, and then if people want to be here 5 years later, if it makes sense for them, do it. We do it a little bit different. We bring people into the UGB that want to be in the UGB that we can service adequately. I don't know that service is necessarily where you all have the issue. It's just that people don't want to be in your UGB. And if they don't, carve them out, please. Make it a whole lot easier on the committee. I don't want to hang this committee up and then put this out in someone else's hands. But if the people don't want to be in it, don't force them to be in it.
Other comments?
Now, say something real quick on that. I appreciate that perspective and analysis. We simply know that the urban growth process is a comprehensive planning approach. If we were having annexation conversations, I would be on a very different perspective. And we've heard a couple times that this is the start of the annexation process, but we know that there are other avenues for annexation available. And so what this process simply allows us to do is plan for what this area should look like. We're not imposing any additional duties or responsibilities on those landowners.
I appreciate that. What the land should look like should be dictated by the individual property owner. So
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Let's carve them out. They don't want to be in UGB.
Other questions from the committee members? Any other remarks from Spring Hill, Mayor?
Yes, sir. So again, I just want to say that this was Alderman Trent Linville, and thank you, Alderman Linville. You did an outstanding job representing the city of Spring Hill, the greatest city in the state of Tennessee. And thank you, class that have come out here to support your cause. We hear you. We have, as a result of the things that you have said and the iterations that you have performed, we have changed our UGB maps a lot because of what you did. Thank you.
So next is the county. Mike?
Okay, good morning again, committee members. So as you know, the county has 6 planned growth areas proposed. 4 in the west, I'm sorry, 4 in the east and 2 in the west. From an overall land area standpoint, we've reduced it by about 80% from what we currently have. We're not proposing any changes to our planned growth areas at this point. However, there are a couple of PGAs where we are evaluating potential changes, and we'd like some public feedback regarding those during the public hearings. This first one that's up on the screen is the Triune area. You may remember at a few meetings back, there was a request by a property owner to add the properties in green to this PGA. That request took place after the county held its 2 public hearings. And so while we're evaluating that request, we'd like to get public comment at the public hearings regarding that. The other PGA where we're contemplating a change is the Arrington PGA. The red represents the current proposed boundary of that PGA. It coincides with the existing Hamlet zoning district out there. We are about to embark on a special area plan for that Arrington area, and the study area for that plan has just recently been defined as that area in green. The major change is the result of the fact that the red, the current zoning boundary, split zones a lot of properties, and so the green simply, includes the entire property. So we're going to contemplate making that change too. Since that took place after our public hearings, we want to get public feedback on that during the public hearing. So those are the 2 changes that we're contemplating to our PGAs.
Questions for Eric?
Just real quick, we all heard the request in Triune, so I know that property owner wants to be included. With Arrington, have those property owners all indicated that they want to be incorporated in the revised PGA and the additional area planning that you're doing?
We have heard from some of them who do want to be in. And again, we want to make sure that we're getting public feedback, so we'll be reaching out directly to the ones we haven't heard of from yet.
Other questions from the committee? Thank you, Mike. So we are at the point in our agenda. If you're prepared to take this to the draft plan, you heard earlier from Christie the action to take this to the individual, and it's just simply a majority vote. If you're prepared for that today, we do have some time frames. I'm probably not going to get the exact date, so give it to me again, Christy, if you don't mind. In order for us to get this in the paper, get it advertised, do the things that we have to do, which the next meeting would be.
Public hearings are scheduled for the 7th and 8th.
Okay.
If we can advertise them.
Okay. So the public hearings have been scheduled for the 7th of November and the 8th of November. That allows us to get it in the paper. That allows us to meet the guidelines of TCA for advertising if this committee is ready to move forward. On the backside of that, approximately December the 13th is when this committee that has been delegated under TCA code that you're in terminates. We cannot go any further than that. So those are hard dates. Excuse me. December 13th is a hard date. November 8th, 7th and 8th, we could make movement, but we would have to have another one of these growth plan coordinated committee meetings in order to do that. So I'm looking for, if you're prepared to do a motion, if you're not prepared, let me know that also. John?
Yeah, if I might suggest, and I don't have my agreement, I would like to see the public hearings a little bit more spread out. Because if you happen to be gone that week, you're gonna miss both public hearings and not have an opportunity to talk. And, if you get to one, so I would like to see one maybe the 7th and one the 14th or something like that. And that'll still give us time to meet the 13th, December the 13th, I believe. And I just think that gives people who really want to talk, if for some reason they can't be there those back-to-back days, and that happens quite a bit, then at least they have an opportunity to be there at one of those sessions. I happen to be one of those, so that's why I'm saying that, but I'd like to be there at one of those meetings, and I can't the way it currently exists.
And so
I will make a motion.
Well, first of all, let me see.
that.
Can that be done by doing it on the 14th legally?
We'll have to make sure we have a location for it, but yes, I need to file it in the paper tomorrow to get to the 7th.
Microphone.
I'm so loud, I don't. We can find a date the week after, but to get it to the 7th or the 8th, we need to get it in the paper essentially tomorrow, so.
And these are all evening, right?
Yes. Yes, they're in the evening.
We'll just have to find a location. This building is very convenient because it's large enough to handle a large group. However, this building is used all the time for some function. So we may not, we'll just have to see what we can find here. All right, no, hold on a minute, John, before you make. Mayor?
November the 14th is a significant date for the city of Franklin, because that's when we'd be swearing in new aldermen, so make the 13th.
Fairview as well.
So suggestion has been doing it on the 13th. Is there something on the 13th? What's on 13th?
We have city commission meeting that night.
I have city commission meeting that night, county commission meeting that night. All right. How about the 15th? I ain't going once. What we got on the 15th? All of you look at your calendars. It's hard to find dates, folks. Does that mean you're open? 15th? How about city? Cities?
Looking. Yep.
Nolensville, Thompson Station, no, Nolensville. Tell you what.
Mayor needs a babysitter.
Yeah,
Bring him with you.
yeah. And Spring Hill, you're all right? Okay, so we're looking at those dates. So, John, did I hear you say you wanted to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we have our public hearing on November the 7th and November the 15th, those 2 days.
Second.
Proper motion to make the meeting on the November the 7th. And we had a second. Do one. Before you did the 15th, let me get the, hold on.
Make a motion that our first public hearing be on November the 7th.
November the 7th. We had a second. Diane, where did you go to? Could you ask Trish if...
We were doing them at the complex.
We're going to have to do it at the complex. It's open over there. This one's not open. All right, so with that in mind, we'll have to do it at the County Commission complex, which is where you get your car tags, folks. And if you were walking into the building from the parking lot, it'll be on the far right-hand side. And that's the County Commission meeting. I got a motion and a second for the November 7th. John made the motion. Mark did the second. Or he did now. Any other questions? Yes, Mayor?
If we
vote on this, does that mean we are ready to move forward?
Right. Right now, the only motion is to schedule a public hearing.
Okay.
So
Yeah, we're getting to the
if
motion.
you take motion, if you vote to schedule public hearings, I would hope there would be a third vote on what you're sending for public comment. Because right now you don't have that established.
All right, we're going to vote first on the meeting date. On November the 7th, County Commission room, did you say in the afternoon, the evening it was available, Diane? Yes, sir. We will start that meeting 6 o'clock. Is that all right for everyone? We're not feeding you pizza. Eat ahead of time. All right. All in favor of the meeting date only, November the 7th, 6 o'clock, County Commission room, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed. All right, do we have a motion what we're going to meet on? Let the record reflect that passed unanimously. Let's do the 15th now. Can you check, Diane? Okay. John, you want to give us on the... Yeah, probably be good if she can get that room on 15th, a Wednesday night. We're trying to get it. All right, while we're good.
So I'll make a motion that our second public hearing be on Wednesday night, I forgot the date.
15th.
November the 15th.
At
the county complex.
At 6 o'clock.
6 p.m.
Do I have a second? Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Moore. All right, you know what we're voting on? Second meeting, November 15th, 6 p.m., County Commission Complex, no pizza provided. Because I'll hear that from somebody.
I didn't put that in the motion.
I know, but I'll have somebody ask. Are you feeding us tonight, Mayor? All right, ready? All in favor of November 15th, 6 o'clock, County Commission room, 6 o'clock, signify by saying aye. Opposed, let the records reflect it passed unanimously. Now then, Christy, you want to tell them what we're going to do next?
Sure, yes. So in your packets, you received a draft growth plan. In that draft growth plan, it's essentially recommendations of what we talked about for the last year and a half. But also includes the most recent map that you were presented today from all the jurisdictions or the ones that were previously presented that haven't changed. There needs to be some sort of action of this committee on what draft plan, including maps, you are sending for public comment. You can simply move to send this for public comment, or you can move to send this with some amendments. So we need to have something so that staff knows what's going to be presented for public hearing.
Christie, as it relates to amendments, how specific do you need to be if you make an amendment? Because we've heard a lot of generalities today, but with an amendment, I just want to know how specific.
I would think that whether it's for public hearing purposes or for actual future recommendations of legislative bodies, if you're going to depart from the map, it would not be specific about that departure. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to know what staff should put together from a mapping standpoint to present to the public, for them to know whether they're affected or not to be able to comment. So from a public notice standpoint, I would recommend and suggest that it be very specific, the amendments.
Eric? Yeah, along those same lines, say we hold the public hearings, and then there's additional amendments. We have to hold additional public hearings once we've amended it, or how does that work if there's modifications after we do the public hearing?
No, the way the statute works is you send something to public hearing, and then you reconvene and put together your recommended plan to send to the legislative bodies. There's not an additional public hearing component after.
So we can modify after we have the public hearing if that's the will of this
Yes,
board.
yes.
Okay.
Presumably, that's how the process would work, because you would receive that public comment and then take whatever action. But you don't have to.
Everybody understand that? Jason?
Thank you, Mayor. So just to use practical language from my own brain, we are in essence, we would, if there's a motion, be voting on moving it forward for public comment so that we would subsequently make a final vote after those public comments just to make sure we all have clear.
That's correct.
Other questions? We don't have a motion. We're just doing a little house cleaning here. Is there a motion then to move forward on those 2 nights you have voted on for a public hearing for the public would consider?
Make a motion to move forward with the growth plan as presented.
The motion has been made to move forward with the growth plan as presented today, and the paperwork that came with that. Do I have a second? Seconded, y'all decide. Give it to Thompson Station, the motion, second by Spring Hill. So, for clarification, what are you voting on? You're voting on the packet that was sent to you, that was sent to you via email this last week. You're voting on the proposed changes as the 2 cities have presented. And I'm going to go around the room while you're thinking about this and ask the other cities, you're still in agreement to accept Fairview, Brentwood, Nolensville, Franklin, and the county.
I'd like to make an amendment to the motion.
Proper motion.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the Spring Hill and Thompson Station UGB plan to exclude any property owners that do not wish to be a part of the UGB.
That's a proper motion, and we have a second from the mayor of Fairview, an amendment to exclude all properties that the people don't want to be included in the urban growth boundary. Is that what I've heard? So we'll have to identify those areas that you're wanting to take out. Other than just that, you'll have to do that because I'm not going to leave it to staff. You'll have to tell me what areas. You want to take a 5-minute break and get with that? And you can't.
I wish I could get that done in 5 minutes. But, I mean, it's pretty easy to say, we want to take this big piece of property and bring it in our UGB. It's very difficult. Maybe Commissioner Herbert has an idea.
This is a map.
You want to use the mic, try to get that mic, the microphone.
This is the map here that they presented for the Spring Hill portion to omit all those that's in the red.
Who did that? Who did that map?
Some of the citizens of that area, they went and got they got us all signed something for this. I know there's one for Spring Hill, it's Thompson Station, I don't think they got it before us, but I'm sure somebody out there could provide it for us.
Mayor, we got a motion and second on the floor. Do you got a comment? Get the microphone, please. Thank you.
Just for clarification, so in the public hearings, would that not accomplish the same thing as we go through the first reading? If any changes were to be made, that would be brought back for the second. Is that correct?
Whatever you vote today to send to public comment is what those 2 public hearings would occur on. Those comments would be brought back to you all, and then you could make whatever changes as a result of those comments, and that's what you would vote to send to the legislative bodies.
So in essence, what Mayor Gorman is trying to do could be accomplished after the first public hearing, correct?
Anytime before December 13th.
Yeah, correct.
what happens if, with this motion, if items are removed prior to it going to public hearing and we inaccurately identify a parcel?
That's the problem.
Because if it does not get submitted as part of the UGB, when it goes to public hearing, at that point, you cannot correct it, is that correct, Christie?
I mean, you can then put it back in, but at this point, I will just say from a staff standpoint, I don't believe there's enough guidance for us to prepare the exhibits with the detail that we have on the table now, just to be perfectly clear.
What would give you,
I need map and parcel numbers of parcels that need to be cut out of the shape files to show to the public whether they're in or not for public comment purposes. Am I saying that right? Anyone that deals with shape file numbers?
And the reason we have to be so specific, not picking, is that we're subject to going to court. And if we don't have those maps and parcels now, Mayor, we've got a motion and second to do that, but I have to have something to tie it to.
Right, so we've got something for the Spring Hill UGB. It sounds like we've got a little work to get to the level of specificity that we need for the Thompson Station UGB.
I think, in all due respect, Mayor, a map color-coded 3 or 4 different colors is not the specifics, because we need to know what maps and parcels those are. And I hope you can understand that. We're not trying to drag our feet, but we do need it. We either need it now, or it can be done at the first public hearing. But we would have to advertise, this would have to be advertised, whatever in the motion is taking effect is, hey, everything today. And you're saying, no, everything today but.
Right, and yes, this is difficult to put forward, right? And so the municipalities have the luxury of staff to present things and prepare maps. The residents have had to form a grassroots effort to come together and try to bring something.
Let's not be coming up into the well, sir. Let's stay out of the well area here. We never will get anything done. Okay, go ahead, Mark.
Just that all the different municipalities have the luxury of staff to make these presentations and prepare maps, those types of things. The residents who aren't really represented by anyone, they've had to put this together themselves. So I'm not sure what's the best vehicle to get this done.
John.
Yeah, I don't, not that I don't believe the residents, but I don't think we can do that without having each individual parcel owner acknowledging, yes, I want to be in it, or no, I don't want to be in it. I don't think there's any other way to do it. So I would say that in order to get that done, and which gets become really complicated, is that we can't blanket take this rep thing and say everybody in here is truly opposed to it. I mean, it's not, we just can't, unless they sign it, then we will know at that point in time that that's true. So I don't think we can just categorically exclude or include anybody at this point in time without having proper notification from the particular landowners. So I don't see how this motion could ever be enacted properly. And that we would be doing things that we probably shouldn't be doing because we don't really have the information from the landowners themselves. So I'll leave it at that.
Mayor.
We do a little bit. I will say that this motion gives me a lot of pause just because of how to do it. We did receive a book at the last meeting or the meeting before last that had notarized signatures for every landowner. So, but that would be the list of who would come out. But I will say, there, I think probably my opinion is the cleanest way to move forward is to go to public hearing, and then if there's specific, because you do have that list of the property owners that notarize that at the second reading as opposed to kind of off the cuff right now, because it will be very difficult. It doesn't send a clear message to the public for what they're really debating on, if you try to kind of haphazardly take it out now.
Well, and I appreciate that, both of your remarks is, in order to meet the November deadline, we have to have this in the paper, well, what we're voting on by tomorrow?
To send it tomorrow.
We have to send it tomorrow, which means we'd have to tie up staff the rest of the day pulling all these numbers. So, Charles' motion.
And I could be incorrect, because this notarized book was actually taken from Thompson Station, but I was under the impression we also got it from Spring Hill. All I'm saying is that there is confusion, and if there's, to echo what Mayor Anderson is saying, if we want to be specific, then let's get specific at second reading for the parcels to remove.
Other questions?
I call the question.
Call the question. All right, so the way you call the question is, we're calling the question on the amendment to the motion. If you're ready to vote on, on the calling of the question, signify by saying aye. Those opposed? I'll take it then that everybody's ready to, the question has been called on the amendment. Would you mind just reading back to me what Mayor Gorman said he wanted his amendment to be?
I believe it was to amend all the parcel owners in Spring Hill and Thompson Station's UGB that do not wish to be within the UGB be excluded.
Is that right? That's correct. And the second still stands. That's what we're voting on. So these two rows are voting. Ready to vote on the amendment to the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Show of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3. The noes have it. We're going back to the main motion. The main motion is to have the meeting on November the 8th, 7th. November 7th, 6 o'clock, County Commission Room, to identify all of the areas that have been put in here as it's upside down, but Christie's showing the growth plan that was submitted. That's what you're voting on now. Back to the main motion, unless there's another amendment. Do I have any other? All right, ready to vote on the
Same plan for both public hearings, right?
same plans for both public hearings. Ready to vote?
Are we voting on just the first day?
First, we'll do the first day.
There were two motions.
We already did that.
There's already a motion and a second to send this to public hearing, both days.
Okay, both days. Voting on both days. I stand corrected. Ready to vote? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. 1, show hands on the nose. 1, 2, 3. Let the records reflect it passed. We got, how many have we got here today? 1, 2, 3.
15.
15? Thank you. All right, so the full plan will go with the understanding amendments can be made at that time. Would somebody give me some direction that I could send to staff? We're going to conversely go back to Thompson Station and to Spring Hill and ask for those partial numbers at the public hearing. If that, you have it already?
I know, but I've got a question. You said amendments. I don't think amendments can be made at the public hearing.
No.
Okay, that's kind of how I understood you saying.
After the public hearing. But if anyone wants to make an amendment during or after the public hearing, we're going to need some partial numbers here, folks. Okay? Anything else? See you on the 8th. I'll entertain one more motion. Move to adjourn.
7 to 15. 7 to 15.